I'm always excited when you arrange something, because this was all Sonia's planning for this one today, is to do a walk. I love walking, like little hikes and stuff like this. And we are back in Simonstown, and we are going to do the Simonstown Ghost Walk.
That we are.
Yeah. Tell us about it.
I don't know too much. I believe it's a 2-hour leisurely walk,
Yes.
which can be driven as well.
All right.
But I thought I'd give it a go because of the leisurely. So I'm hoping I am making it all the way back
I'm sure you will.
because of the duration and because of the ghosts.
Yes, yes.
So
The ghosts.
André Leibbrandt is the initiative behind the Simonstown Ghost Walk, and André is very kindly sponsoring this episode for us.
Fantastic.
He wasn't sure whether himself will be the guide or Nicole.
Okay.
Or maybe we lucky and we have both of them.
That would be great.
So André's contact details will be displayed on the screen and will be in the description of our video. And I think we're excited.
Yeah, and we're sitting here at Jubilee Square waiting for them. So.
Yes, this is the meeting point.
Yes.
I forgot that. This is the meeting point at 6:30.
Yes.
We left Strand about 2 hours in advance, not to sit in too much traffic.
Yes, yes.
So we arrived well ahead of time.
I'm looking forward to it. So let's go and explore.
We decided to have a drink.
Yeah.
So Curtis is having a beer. What else? And I am having a cola tonic and lemonade with some lemon.
I'm looking forward to this.
While we wait for André and
Yes.
Nicole.
I think this is very appropriate, yeah, where we're sitting having a drink. This tree is from Australia, but it's called a ghost gum.
What a coincidence
Yeah.
that we chose this table.
Yes.
What does it say about it?
It says this is a listed tree and is part of the historical fabric of Simonstown. It may not be damaged or removed without permission from the City of Cape Town Heritage Department. For details, contact someone. Simonstown Historical Society champion tree. Country of origin, Australia. Tree list number is 049. So this is a historical tree, eh?
Yeah,
Great.
gum tree. Look at that thick trunk.
Yeah. Jubilee Square, 1935. So we are all together here, and there's another couple doing the walk with us, but they don't want to be filmed, so we're going to respect that. So we'll try and strategically miss them as we do the walk.
But André and Nikki, as she would like us to call her,
Yes.
have both arrived. So I think we're almost ready to go.
Yeah, I think it's going to be cool.
Okay, so how did the Ghost Walk become the Ghost Walk? A lot of people have asked me, and I just divulged. So about 11 years ago, I ended up homeless in Simonstown. I eventually got employment on Jubilee Square and got a place in a place called Happy Valley, which at times is always not that happy. And eventually got a paid car guard job on Jubilee Square. And I saw the people coming to take photographs, and I thought, I was doing a couple of local historic walks, and myself and the young man that started this with me, Matt Collard, put our heads together and we put together the Ghost Walk. And that was about 8 years ago. And since then, I've had just under 6,000 people
Wow.
joining us. So it's an absolute blessing for me to have landed
6,000? That's a lot.
Not going to cry, don't worry.
Not tonight.
Not tonight, no. So yeah, it's a blessing. It wouldn't have happened if I didn't end up in Simonstown. I slept all over the place in the burial ground you guys are going to walk through. churches, Jubilee Square, all over that. We used to be the quarter deck. I slept on that deck there many occasions. And here I am. We're just busy repairing our ghost mobile now. So pretty soon we'll have a fairly decent running car, but I am driving it tonight. As I said, as you can see, my lungs are not what they used to be. That's how the ghost walk originated. And the most important part of the ghost walk was on the 31st of this month last year. I met Nikki for the first time on a walk.
On Halloween.
On Halloween. Exactly a year ago. And if she didn't walk physically in all aspects into my life, I don't think the ghost walk would have continued. She blew me away. In January was her first official walk, which we did together, and I taught her everything I know. In the interim, she's blown me away with all the info that she's gotten. So Simonstown, third oldest village in South Africa, and per capita the most haunted. All the way from Glencairn side right through, we get tales daily almost of people saying, oh, this and that and this and that, and we follow up on that and do research and stuff like that. And then from then we placate the stories or
keep people's stories alive.
Keep the people's stories alive, because it's the third oldest village in South Africa. There's been hundreds of thousands of deaths. There has to be ghosts. It's the bottom line. Some buildings dating back to the late 1600s, the Admiralty House, that's the oldest house in Simonstown. The plans for that date back to late 1600. It's only built early 1700. And before it became known as Simonstown, it was called Snooky. And that, I think, concludes my little start to the walk. I think it is now the blonde's turn.
All right, so I've got a little tradition that I like to do before we start every walk.
Very important tradition.
Very important tradition. It keeps the spirit with us for guidance and guarding, and that's, have you guys heard of Able Seaman Just Nuisance?
Yes.
Yeah, the dog. Yeah. So he wasn't just a mascot in the Navy, he was an actual enrolled seaman in the Navy. And but do you guys know about how that came about?
I think we might have known, but no.
Forgotten now.
Tell the tale there, or
Just a short one. Let's go. So what the little tradition that I like to do is I like to give his nose a bit of a rub, and you'll see that lots of people have done it just before our walk.
It's the shiniest dog nose in South Africa.
There we go.
So Just Nuisance was a pet of a gentleman who came from Constantia side, and he grew up getting to know the Navy, the seamen, specifically the seamen that had the blue bell-bottom trousers and the white piece at the top here. And he became very good friends with them, and he would catch the train with them into town and guide them out of bars and make sure they got back to the naval base. Even if they weren't from this naval base, they'd still bring them back here. And no matter how many times the train conductors tried to kick him off the train and everything, he refused to budge, and he was quite a formidable creature to try and tell what to do. So they said to the guy, well, you either got to have the dog put down or do something about it. So the Navy, the Royal Navy, because he was so good for morale and everything, decided to enroll him in the Navy. And he did actually kill the three other mascots on boats, but other than that, he was quite a peaceful dude, but he would cause a bit of trouble, and he'd get like denied bones and stuff. And so as we walk now, I'm going to show you where he was buried. We're obviously not going to go right up there, but you can see it during the day. You guys ready to move on?
Yes.
Cool.
We went up there once when we did a video about Simonstown. We went right up to his grave and we filmed it and everything.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so a little bit of maritime trivia to learn, historical trivia. Behind me, this black and white ball that you see hanging here, this is not the original, it's a replica, but this is what was called a time ball back in the day. So obviously if ships came to a new port, and this was before we had phones that would synchronize the time with the new area or anything, they'd have one of these in town instead of having to send a sailor ashore in a rowing boat. So what would happen is at 1:45 p.m. every afternoon, it would come halfway up the mast. It was on a pulley system. Just before 1 p.m. every day, it would come right to the top of the mast, and at exactly 1 p.m. it would drop, and then they could synchronize the ship's clocks.
Okay,
until the time.
That's interesting.
And I'll show you guys a picture of the original. Just while we're walking along, people tend not to look down at the pavement, and these are all emblems of South African ships or South African naval ports in South Africa.
Simonsburg.
Good evening.
Protea. Yeah.
The flare.
Flare.
Oh, is that Waltermader's horse?
Well, fleur is supposed to mean flower in French, so I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah. If you guys have a look behind you, across the road, you see between White's building and Willard's Hotel, we've got a square white building with black trim around the windows and the door and a nice plaque next to the front door.
Yes.
So that is now a private residence, but that is the site of the first pub in South Africa. It was called the Union Tavern. And there's a reason, the reason why it closed down is because it used to have a billiards table in the pub, and the sailors would obviously go up there and get drunk and fight over who was winning money on the billiards table. So the Navy had it confiscated, and then the tavern tanked.
Crazy.
And hopefully I'm going to get a private tour of the place soon. But anyway.
I see it's a national monument, yeah.
Yeah, it is a national monument. So that would have had slave quarters and a stable attached to it as well. Apparently it's got an absolutely beautiful basement. And this greenery that you see coming down the slope here, this used to be a cobbled street. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the term being cobbled when you're really drunk.
Yes.
But there are stories about a shadowy figure that used to push sailors down the street. And I'm not sure if it was because they were really drunk or if they actually might have been the ghost of a slave that was not very happy.
Interesting, eh?
Really good Korean food here.
So you've never been inside there?
No, but a friend of mine's house sits there, so hopefully I will get an opportunity.
Goodness me. Air Max.
Cool.
It's touching the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently it lifts when they start the car.
Yeah,
I hope so.
for his sake.
All right, so just to give you guys an idea of what this town would have been like, especially during the 1800s, this is our main public pier. And this is where all the fishermen would come and sell their, it's like a big fish market that would happen here. So you could just imagine it bustling around here at the fish market and stuff. Yeah. And then I'm going to show you a picture across the road. Let's just cross quickly.
So you were right. This is the wall, eh?
Good. Yeah. Here's a picture of the original time wall. And this is about our town jetty, which is the first prefabricated concrete jetty of its type in South Africa.
So then on the side there is the original
Yeah.
wall.
Well, you can see the jetty from here, actually. It's that pier that goes out, and that's where all the you'll find now all the chocker fishermen, all the calamari fishermen are coming to fish for squid now. Yeah. Especially now that the water's about 14 degrees up.
This time of the evening.
Yeah.
Okay.
And quite late into the evening, there's still fish. We did have an aircraft carrier in one of our dry docks for some minor collision repairs at one stage.
Whoa, minor. Wild.
Quite minor.
That's insane.
And this is the size of some of the fish that we would have caught in the bay, which we'll be lucky to get off of Cape Point now. Oh. Alrighty.
Girls and lads we go.
There's so many little, now that I'm a little bit older and allowed to walk around and stuff my own,
Yeah.
there's so many aspects of the town that I grew up in that I had no idea were there,
Yes,
no
yes.
idea about. And since I met André and started listening to the stories, it just set my imagination on fire with just imagining what this town would have been like and how many souls have lived in this town for
And
a
what
couple
it
of
must
centuries.
have been like 200, 300 years ago. It must have
Exactly.
been amazing.
So it just got me curious about, and then when you start digging, it's quite interesting when you hear about all the little stories amongst
Exactly.
people and who did what, and yeah, so it's still very much a small, cliquey, family type town, so it's quite funny to see how all of that has evolved and everything.
Okay.
So.
I'm sure you didn't think that you'd be here today when you took your Halloween walk last year.
Absolutely. All right, guys, this is the furthest we're going to walk in this direction tonight. So these are the West Dockyard gates, and they actually used to be further up the road on the bend in the wall there. But there's a couple of things to talk about on this side. So André mentioned the oldest Dutch building in Simonstown, and that's Admiralty House, which is this spot. You guys would have seen it as you drove in on the left. There's a big white house with a very shiny brass plaque on the front gate. And they used to have awesome concerts in the garden, but we don't really do that anymore lately. So that's the Admiral's house, and to this day the Admiral's still afraid of staying in that house. So there was a story about the Admiral's wife going to town to run errands one day, and when she came home, the staff and all the animals were outside in turmoil and they didn't want to go back into the house. And they said that there's something up in the white room overlooking the mountain, and we think that it's this room back here. So she walks upstairs and the door handle's freezing cold. She opens it up, the room's in absolute chaos, freezing cold. Eventually she managed to convince everybody to come back inside, but they weren't, it was very unsettling. Then there was another story about one of the servants or slaves approaching the Admiral's wife directly, which was not a done thing in those days. And he said, "Ma'am, I just needed to tell you that when you walked up the stairs, there was a shadow that followed you." So, like I said, to this day, they don't like to stay up there. All right, a couple of other things on this side of town. Do you guys see the white building with the green roof with the little white koppies on top? It looks like a church. That's because it is a church. That is the oldest practicing Methodist church in South Africa.
In South Africa.
Yeah, which is very cool. Then if you have a look just above the wall, there's a lamppost with two like duck blue buildings with grey roofs that look identical next to the pink building. Yes. So that is the Lord Nelson Inn. It's not an inn at the moment. It's actually a rehabilitation centre for wayward people or people that have been addicted to things. And it's probably not the best place that I could think of to go through the DTs because it's quite haunted.
Oh,
Getting
boy.
train spotter vibes with babies and CDs and stuff.
What?
To this, like Nadima Smith, the owners actually spent a lot of money trying to exorcise the ghosts out of there, and I went to school with her daughters. They used to live in the hotel, and they would often, even though they were alone in the hotel, they could hear people walking up and down the stairs, and there was a woman in a long dress that used to walk around. And my sister actually had a seance in one of the rooms, much to discuss, because she was trying to placate everybody in there. And André actually has one of his own stories about the place, which I'll tell you briefly. He was sitting there during COVID times. He used to give the manageress, her name was also Nikki actually, used to give her a lift to work. And the hotel would, again, be absolutely empty. And he would sit downstairs by the bar where the bathroom door is. And it's one of those bathroom doors that's on a door that's on a hinge. So it's quite difficult to open. I should know myself, actually worked there as well. And while he's sitting there, the door opened by itself. And about 5 seconds later, not even, the way he explains it, there was a bin behind the bar with a cage around the bar, obviously to stop people stealing alcohol. And the bin lid just popped off and rattled on the floor. And so he likes to say it, so the first thing he did is he went to the bathroom and changed his underwear. And then he asked Nikki to actually go back in the CCTV footage, and there is footage of this happening, just like he tells it, on the Ghost Walk page. You can find it on there on Facebook. Yeah. So that's one of his little stories. Now, this blue building that you see here, and then the building to the left of that, the yellow building, which is a Navy building, and you see a white archway in the front that used to be a door on the roadside. And that's one of the spots where Just Nuisance got his name from. He would lie in the doorway and the sailors would trip over him and say, "Oh, you're just a nuisance."
Oh boy.
That and at the top of gangplanks on ships. And so this section of town was what we call where the ships would come and victual, or the victualling section of town. So if a ship needed supplies or food for the sailors and things like that, this is where you would come to buy stuff like that. And the small stone building to the left of that building, this is one of the smallest Sir Herbert Baker designs, who's quite a famous architect.
The one with the flag?
Yes, the one with the flags. But it's so that's been a pub for as long as I can remember under various names. It started off as a cold storage, and then it became a bank for a while. And then, like I said, pub under various names. Spent many a wayward night there. And notoriously haunted as well. Naileen, she can see or sense things, and she often senses things and can hear people talking and stuff in the pub she works there. And they often have glasses falling off of shelves there. And there was another bartender who was trying to lock up for the evening and just started feeling incredibly nauseous and ice cold, and he actually had to leave the building. And on that note, actually, Naileen, I've known her since I was a kid, and she makes key rings.
What?
So I like to help her out. They're $30 each, and so have a think about it. And if you guys feel like parting with a little memento for the evening, all the proceeds go to her. I don't take any of it, but she's a really cool young lady. All right, this extravagant looking building across the road from us, the British Hotel, this looks like where people would have big parties and stuff, and that's exactly what they did back in the day. I think it was built in 1860, if I'm not mistaken. So when the railroad, or our rail station, opened here in 1890, this is where the big banquet was held in celebration of that. And if there were any Antarctic explorers that came through town, this is where they would stay.
Wow.
And so you'll notice with the architecture in Simonstown, like André was saying, you see all the Dutch gabling and stonework and stuff in the back, and then you've got this Victorian brookie lace wrought iron stuff going on with the balcony in the front. So that was a trend that was started by quite a prominent mayor of ours, who was mayor for a couple of decades, Mr. Runciman, and that's what that road at the top's named after. So he had this done on his mansion on Runciman Drive, and then obviously all the traders in Simonstown decided to copy him and do the same. Now, Andre's actually this is now a private residence as well, it's 4 apartments, and Andre's had the privilege of getting a private tour, and apparently there's a Victorian staircase in the courthyard in the back there, there's a solid oak shower inside.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's absolutely stunning. The building did go through quite a bad fire, and had vagrants and stuff staying in it for a while, so a lot of it's not the original austerity that you see, and but you can still find bits and pieces of it, like the mirror and another billiards table in the Simonstown Museum, which is another cool spot to visit during the day if you guys are in town. Also very haunted.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They actually had to stop doing tours in the Simonstown Museum because the ghost got quite upset about it and physically pushed somebody.
What?
Yeah. So there's definitely, I've never experienced anything myself, but there is stuff. I think I'm quite protected. Now, at the turn of the 19th century, there was a lady called Mary Kingsley, and she never got married or anything. Her whole thing, she just had this lust for travel and stuff, and she used to travel around and write information for people that were considering migrating and all that sort of stuff. And at the turn of the 19th century, she was here during the Boer War, and she helped treat Boer prisoners of war, and until she succumbed to typhus in 1900. And because of her service, she was given a full military burial at sea.
Wow.
And when they took her out and they tried to, dispose of her, her body refused to sink and floated back ashore a couple of times until eventually they managed to get her to rest peacefully. But not that peacefully, because the guards at this guardhouse at the gate here say that they often see a woman in a long black Victorian dress come to the top right-hand balcony there and gaze out to sea and then disappear back inside. So we've got a strong feeling that that might be the ghost of Mary Kingsley. And I've actually got a picture of her here.
Interesting, eh?
Very grand building.
Yeah.
So this is Mary Kingsley. I definitely feel like she's got a little secret smirk going on here,
yes,
like she knows
for
something.
Sure.
So I like to say that alcoholism is a fundamental pillar of South African culture. And this is one of the stories that will help you see what I mean. So there was a big boom in business and stuff and investment in the Deep South. There was a brewing company called Olsen Brewers, who are known as like the godfathers of modern day beer brewing. And they made it one of their missions to buy up as many hotels in the Deep South as possible for the pure reason of just selling beer. And Central Hotel behind us here and the Willits Hotel were two of those hotels that they bought up. But that's not the only reason I want to tell you about Central Hotel. So where the Ayat Super 8 is downstairs, best mini mart in Simonstown, just by the way. There used to be a used cars sales shop there, and it was run by a larger-than-life gentleman called Reggie Biggs. But in 1970s, he got cancer and then died eventually. Oh no, sorry, didn't die eventually. He decided to off himself in one of his cars, gas himself. I'm not going to explain to you how to do that. But they say that on a quiet evening when you're upstairs, you can hear a car idling and you can still smell the gas coming out of the car. So,
Upstairs at the Central Hotel.
You can smell it from downstairs, apparently. Now, Charlie's Garage and Smokehouse is a really cool spot to come to if you guys want to finish the evening there. I like to promote all the little businesses and so on. Too. All right. So this is a monument to the forced removals that happened in Simonstown in the 1960s. And André likes to tell me it's all up to me. Never let it happen again.
It's all up to the young people, yeah, as she says. However, some people of color were allowed to keep their buildings. If you look behind you, you'll see that is the rectory building. And why it's called the rectory building, if you look next door, that blue building, which is now called Cafe Pescado, it's also got a Criterion sign on it, signage. That's the site of the first Anglican church ever built in South Africa. So it was built there. Well, it didn't last very long before it had to be demolished. It was very badly damaged by a storm due to the fact that they couldn't really keep the mountain sort of back. And it flooded. They tried to repair it, didn't work. They had their church services in a whole couple of places through Simonstown. And then eventually they built the Church of St. Francis, which is now on the way down to where you go down to the museum. So yeah, that's quite an interesting building in itself. After they demolished it, two-story warehouse was put up there, cold storage for meat, a whole lot of different varieties of goodies, and eventually it became the Criterion Cinema, where people of all color, age were allowed to come and watch a movie after selling their wares on what used to be called Town Square, before it was called Jubilee Square. So that's that building. The one next to it, the blue building. Okay, that's a building that sort of changed my mind from being blasé about the paranormal to being totally, yeah, there's definitely something. I get people on certain walks that are gifted. Some people contact me and they say they're gifted. So two people on that specific walk, gifted people, came walking through, and as they walked past the building, now I need to tell you, I knew nothing about this building before this happened. So the youngster said to his mom, "Mom, did you see that?" And his mom went, "Yes." And so the whole group wanted to know what. And so eventually she told us that as they walked past, they saw a group of schoolboys sitting on their haunches playing like marbles or something and inviting her son to come and play along. And that changed my mind. I first and foremost Facebook stalked the lady just to find out what she does. And turns out she's a chartered accountant from Durbanville side. So that changed mine. I knew nothing about the building. Did some history research. Got a gentleman that helped me as well, Harry Kroom, very involved with all the historic things in Simonstown, and he handed me a booklet. And I looked at the booklet and it said it's about Simonstown School. So my research went as far as knowing that it was the old town offices way back in the 1970s. As the building board outside, when you walk past, you'll see it says there Simonstown Chambers. The sign was only recently opened up again after there had been some really ugly roller shutter doors. So that's that building, and that's how that building completely, utterly changed my mind from being blasé to being different about the paranormal. Because in the booklet, that picture of that building was in there, and it was a free school in Simonstown.
Crazy.
Way back in the late 1800s. So how those people knew that, yeah, and how they knew that, I've no idea. And that's the thing that changed my mind from being negative to being, yeah, well,
there might be something
out there, we're not sure.
Literature test here. Double, toil and trouble, fire, burn and cauldron bubble by the pricking of my thumb. Something wicked this way comes.
Shakespeare. I played a witch.
Macbeth, lekker, that's so cool. So we've got this really weird tradition here in Simonstown that we're not really allowed to talk about, but I'll let you guys know this evening. So once a year, coming towards the end of this month now actually, this month, we go around, we gather all the children off the street and stuff, and we like to put them in this pot and then cook them. No, I'm kidding.
I would hope so.
I should hope so. This is an authentic whale blubber cooking pot.
Oh, okay.
So Simonstown was quite a big whaling station in the early 1800s, and it was one of the biggest incomes after winemaking and agriculture. And the guys were quite hectic. They would go out in these little pine pointy boats, and they would literally paddle after the whales and use spears and stuff. And then they would have like a mothership. They would either drag them ashore when they'd kill them, or have a mothership that would follow them to collect the whale. And it's flat on the sides like this and has these ears so that it can be secured properly to a ship. Whaling was stopped in the late 1800s, so it wasn't too long of a thing. So, and now we thankfully are seeing a lot of whales returning to Simonstown. I mean, it's been absolutely glorious this season. Yeah, but for April Fools, we really wanted to take a big Marmite sticker and stick it on the side. We don't think the Hysterical Society will be very happy.
They wouldn't be chuffed, eh?
So 1880. Wow.
Yeah. So the blubber or the fuel cooked down in a pot like this would have been used to fuel like Cape Point Lighthouse, the lanterns in town, and then also Roman Rock Lighthouse, which is the only lighthouse on a rock of its kind in the Southern Hemisphere. Which is quite cool. Yeah.
Crazy.
So it's an actual pot.
This is
not
the
a
actual.
replica.
No,
it's
it's the actual
pot. Yeah.
Wow.
All right, guys, we're going to take a little bit of a side thing down here today and check the submarine out. This is also really cool, guys, to come check out if you like diving and stuff. And they do like marine research, marine biology stuff. Very interesting. I used to do charters with them, and then we collect water samples.
Okay,
and
nice.
things like that. It's quite cool. Just watch the roots here. So yeah, so come check it out.
Oh, this is it. You can stand here and look at it.
Yeah.
Huh? Whoa.
It's quite formidable when you see it out of the water as well. So this is a Daphne class submarine. Her name is SAS Assegai, and she would have been in operation in the 1970s. It's a diesel-run sub, and apparently there was a NATO exercise with all these modern-day submarines, and one of our Daphnes managed to sail through the entire fleet undetected.
Serious?
And they did a dive test to see how long the sailors could stay down, and I think it was 31 days before
underwater.
they had to resurface. Obviously the submarine would have to surface to run its diesel engines to charge the batteries, but that's how long you could live in there with the air. And then this is actually from a ex-submariner that I heard this story.
Wow.
And apparently when they opened it up, the first thing they do is they make everybody eat garlic so that everybody stinks the same. But then when they got back and when you open the sub up, it took about a week of airing the sub out before anybody else could go inside.
Because I can just imagine how it honked. Eh?
It's huge though.
Yeah, it's massive, eh?
I want to have a peek.
There are people that live here, so I'm just going to blow my voice a little bit. So this is Umlay House, or the Heritage Museum in Simonstown. And this is about the Muslim community that was established here in about 1888. And apparently the history that you can find in this place is richer than some of the stuff that you can find in the Boerkaap in Cape Town. So it's definitely a cool place to come and check out.
So it's an operational museum, but
Yes.
also a private residence.
Yes, because the Umlay family are still live
Resident
here.
here.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And they actually used to own a lot of places in town. They had a butcher in town. There was a couple other things too. So this is Black's Lane. So we were just at the Heritage Museum, which is at the front end of this row of apartment blocks or apartments. Now the water, a lot of this land is reclaimed, so the water actually came right up to about where those palm trees are, and this is where the treknet fishermen would fish out of it as well. And so there was a story about a gentleman called Robert Cooper who had an affair with a young lady and they had a child outside of wedlock. And she, obviously because the town was so small and everything, and to avoid like gossip and everything, she went to Cape Town to have the baby. And when it was born, Mr. Cooper, went through to town to see it and promptly strangled the child.
What?
Yeah. Then when he brought the body back, he tried to dispose of it at sea, and obviously the fishermen found it, and everybody knew who it was because, well, he even tried to borrow a couple of other people's infants to try and prove that it wasn't them. But that's where his ungentlemanly conduct did end, because he did have the lady acquitted of her crimes, and he was one of the last hangings to happen in Roland Street in Cape Town. And women who stay in the front apartments say that there was a woman who felt somebody sit down on the bed next to her while she was sitting on the bed, and another woman was in the bath and felt somebody run their fingers down her spine. So it's the one kinky ghost that we got in Simonstown.
That's the Mr. Cooper.
Mr. Cooper.
Only one.
That we're aware of. Yeah. So the Black's Lane is also named after Mr. Black, who started our Freemasons Hall. It's a couple of buildings down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you guys have a look behind you, the old hospital terrace. Now, remember when we looked at, you can still see at the top of the hill where Just Newson's grave is, there's a building next to it. That is actually where the hospital was moved to. And there were two reasons for that. So one was that because all the buildings were so close together, they were worried that if there ever was a breakout, like a pandemic or something to happen, that it would wipe out the entire town. So they decided to move the patients up to the top of the hill. And the other reason was there was a wine house a couple of buildings down from the hospital. Evening, how are you?
Hi there.
And the sailors, or 6 sailors, would often jump out of their hospital beds in their gowns, go get fraught in town, and then come back and claim to be sick again. And the governor actually had tried to have it shut down, but it's continued in operation until it went bankrupt, the winehouse.
Oh, thanks for clearing that up. We were wondering why the hospital was on the top of the hill.
And that's why that cableway was there for that, eh?
Yes,
To
so
take
the-
the patients up.
Yes, so the cableway would transport both patients and goods as well. And there was actually even a leper colony at the top of the hill at one stage, but I don't know enough about that to talk about it.
Wow.
Like the whole isolation aspect makes complete sense.
Yes, it does. Now it makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
We were wondering about
Oh,
that.
we were saying now, why would they put the hospital on the hill?
So another cool thing about Terrace Hospital here is, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of a Joseph Lister. And he was a guy from the UK who was he's known for modern day implications with sterilization for surgery, surgical sterilization methods and tools. And his practices were first put into place in this hospital in South Africa.
Is this still a hospital, Nikki?
No, so that brings me to the next thing. A lot of it's not really lived in or anything. There are a couple of spots you can see that there are lights on
Only
that
a
are
few,
occupied.
though. Yeah.
And if at the end of the wall, you see where the stone wall gets taller and there's that white
Yes.
arch doorway. So that is the human resources officers of the Navy.
Okay.
And André's had a few people that work there on walks with him that say that they think that they've got a poltergeist in there, because they'll lock up for the night and they come back the next day and the office has been tossed around, or while they're sitting there even they'll have files ripped out of shelves and stuff. And I think André did try to take a paranormal investigator in there and she chickened out.
Serious?
She what?
She chickened out of She couldn't go in. Yeah. And she also says that on walks, some of his guests have said that they've seen shadows come out of that doorway and try follow the group up the road. I've never had the privilege of seeing that myself, and I probably might not do another ghost walk again if I did see that. This is the cheapest accommodation in Simons.
Yeah, you can get in there pretty easy, eh?
But we're going to talk a little bit about it just now. All right, so we've just passed, as I mentioned, the cheapest accommodation. This is the Simonstown Police Station. And the building as it stands right now is not actually the original building. This one actually won an architectural award in the 70s. But when they raised the original building on this lot, they did find dungeons underneath it, or slave quarters really,
Wow.
with shackles and chains and whatnot. And now, one of our walks, with André, a couple of months into our walks, one of our guests on the walk back popped his head out of the police station and said, you can come for a private tour. And we were like, what? And it turned out that he was the station commander, I think, in the
correct, yes.
late 1990s. That's 1990 something. Yeah. And so we ended up actually getting a private tour of the place. And there was, just ask André, it's not a very pleasant place to be in for any reason whatsoever. So there's
Locked up there, that's for sure.
there's a corridor on the first floor where they have to go to raise or drop the flags. You can actually see they have dropped them this evening, but they often don't. And we think it's because the officers working there are sometimes a bit scared of going up there. There was an alleged suicide up there. And when I went in, I maybe felt a little bit of heavier air, but André actually couldn't go in there at all.
I honestly couldn't. I just turned around and I walked out and I went and sat outside. I felt weird and I've never actually felt like that. Maybe it's because I was wanted.
At the time.
But you'll often, as well, find the officers sitting on the opposite side of the road because they don't want to be in there if they're working on their own.
For real?
Yeah.
And so you say if the flags haven't been taken down, that might be a reason that they were too scared to go up there that
Yeah,
day.
or I'm just giving them a really good reason and a
Not to.
good excuse because they really should. Now, the other thing is, before there was a mortuary, I think it's in Plumstead. I always forget if it was Plumstead. They used to, if there were any deaths in town, they would actually do the autopsy here in the police station, in what was then the kitchen at the back of the station
boy.
here. And that is now the victim-friendly room. Police station.
Oh boy.
I want to go there. If
No.
I've been victimized. I'm not going to feel very friendly. Okay, behind us we have the Dutch Reformed Church of Simonstown. late 1800s. So currently our national anthem in South Africa consists of 2 songs. One is Nkosi Sikelele Africa. It was written by a pastor called Enoch Sontonga. We must go and follow these people. They're having a braai somewhere. We're missing out. Written by Enoch Sontonga in the late 1800s, and the stem, our original national anthem, written by a poem written by Langenhoven, C.J. Langenhoven, 1914, 15, 16, and the music to the stem was composed in that building in the back there by Jubilee de Villiers in 1921.
Wow.
So it's a very historic church, this, and that's a year before Afrikaans actually was declared a national language.
That's very interesting.
1922. And that's it. Now you guys are going to stroll onto a burial ground.
So this is a genuine Edwardian post box that the Royal Navy would have received their mail in. Apparently there's lots of Christmas cards in here now from kids. So this is Flora House, and all the wood that you see in this building and on this building was taken off of a ship called the HMS Flora and used to build the house.
Oh.
And HMS for a boat means His Majesty's ship or Her Majesty's ship. Just for a bit of trivia. So that spot where there's no street lights,
Okay.
that's where we're going.
How cool.
Especially organized, obviously.
You had them turn them off.
They haven't worked up here for a while. I don't know what's going on. When the southeaster blows here, it's really cool because I've got this one tree that creaks really creepily.
Okay.
And like a gate that slams every now and then.
That's perfect. eh?
Works quite well. And we actually heard an owl in the cemetery the other day, which is really cool.
That gives the best atmosphere.
Like that. Ooh. Alrighty guys, this is the Seaforth burial ground. Just a quick quiz question. Does anybody know what the difference is between a cemetery, a burial ground, and a graveyard?
No.
So a graveyard is a place that is attached to a church, that you have places where people are buried. And a cemetery or a burial ground is not attached to a church.
Oh, wow.
Wow, so that's quite a cool one. Alrighty guys, let's have a look at a map. Alright, so the cool thing about this cemetery is that it was all separated not by color or anything like that, but by religion. So everybody's kind of buried with each other as long as you follow the same godly person. So obviously we are here. Now this is my favorite part of the cemetery because there are no actual bodies involved in this part. This is the Garden of Remembrance, so this is all memorial stuff. And this is the oldest memorial that we'll take a walk up to. And there's also a really stunning view at the top of the cemetery. These guys have got the best view. Then we've got a Muslim section that's got a saint buried in the section.
Wow.
And that is somebody who brought Islam to South Africa, even not just Simonstown. A lot of the people were slaves that were brought over here, or even political prisoners from the Far East that started Islam in South Africa. Then we've got the Anglican section, obviously, and the Roman Catholic section and the Dutch Reformed section. Now we've got this thing in Simonstown that because it's such an old place and there's so many lives that have been involved here, that if you're ever going to renovate or like a plot of land, you try not to dig down, although a lot of more people should, because then history gets uncovered. Yeah. And this is exactly what happened at the other end of town near the waterfall. There was a gentleman who wanted to start an apartment complex for the Navy. This was in 2019, I think, yeah. And when they started digging, they started uncovering human bones, and they ended up exhuming, I think it was over 180 skeletons or bodies.
Wow.
And we're not entirely sure where they came from. They could have been Boer prisoners of war. They could have been from the hospital in that area. It was a mass grave. They could have been sick sailors, a witch cackling. Could have been 6 sailors off a ship. Yeah. But now obviously they needed somewhere to put all these people, and that's what they decided to do, was to move them to the Dutch Reformed section. And that's this site over here is where those people will move to. Now, I've had a few gifted people on the walk with me who are sensitive to things, and I've always been warned pretty much the same thing in this section, that you always stick to the path, and they've said that if you're feeling sick or anything like that, then you shouldn't go into that area. So I usually wait at the wall here, and then usually about here, people start feeling like there's a wall that they're walking up against, and like a really angry feeling, like a get out sort of feeling. And then people start to smell like an acrid, rotten smell, and start to feel very nauseous and freezing cold. And I had a school trip with me the one day, and of course you never egg school children on into doing something silly like this. But the one girl actually ran out and couldn't breathe, and she only recovered when we took her out of the cemetery. So I wouldn't recommend going into this section if you are sensitive to energies. I think I'm quite well protected. I've never felt anything in there before, but I also try not to go in there because I tend to do this every weekend, unless it's during the day. So like I say, we're going to take a walk up, and then we'll see how you guys are feeling. And then we might take a walk out of the other gate. And another thing is people's cameras and stuff often start to act up in the cemetery. So this will be interesting. I had my one friend who came in here, she's very well protected, and every photo we took of her, there was this glow over her. It's like this protective shield, yeah.
Wow.
And Andre is actually on one of the walks, somebody caught a figure in a photo at the bottom of the cemetery here.
Sure. I just love checking out the dates.
Mm-hmm. I will start with the oldest.
Oh wow.
So this is, I'm just out of it. This is the oldest memorial in the cemetery. So this section is all to people that were lost at sea, in wars, exploding engine rooms. There's a couple of interesting ones in here.
1795.
Yeah.
Wild, eh?
And it just gets older from there. And then this section I really enjoy, they call it the amphitheater. It's just, these are all just memorial plaques for people whose bodies weren't brought here.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they maybe even be buried somewhere else, but this is just a memorial, like a war memorial section.
Oh.
And you can see there's a lot of damage here, unfortunately.
Oh.
But they are, again, private individuals getting involved to have it repaired.
Departed on the 30th of November 1824. Wow. Mm.
It's quite a weird juxtaposition next to the vibrant
yes,
thing going on.
We are in the cemetery and they're having a party on that side.
Living life.
Yep, that's true.
Here you can see a memorial to one of the Masons, Freemasons.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh yes, look at that symbol, eh?
Yeah. I'll show you the hall on the way home.
George Richards died 29 April 1902, 38.
So, I don't know if you guys know, usually if somebody's buried at sea, there's this practice that's done where the final stitch, because they stitch you into a canvas.
Oh yeah, they do the nose.
The final stitch goes through the nose so that if you're not dead, you hopefully wake up. Yeah. That's the way my dad wants to go. No, thank you.
They're a lively bunch.
Yeah, just watch out for the hole here.
They keep the guys in the cemetery
Waking
awake
the
as well.
dead. So just have a look at the view that these guys get from here. It's absolutely stunning.
Only the best for the dead.
Look at that, eh?
And these are the best apartments in Simonstown because your neighbours are very quiet. Well, not apparently
not
not.
tonight. It looks like a tomb over there.
I don't know was looking like a grave robber with the flashlight. It's not lost on me.
Ja.
Yeah.
Yes, here it is, eh?
Dat begrafenis. Een boom. Kruisgevangenen.
Oh, hier begraven. 1899 to 1902. Oh yes, in remembrance of the 82 burghers of the ZAR who died as prisoners of war at Simonstown during the Anglo-Boer War and are buried here, erected by the National Monuments Council, 1984. Wow, how cool is that? And I see someone put flowers there, that's nice.
Well, his life gets shorter and shorter every time.
Oh really? Oh, we're nearly through already, eh?
Yeah.
These are old gravestones, eh? Wow.
And it's the Anglican section.
Oh really?
So this is the Freemasons Hall, but it used to be up Wickboom Lane, and then they moved it to here, and now it's in Glenken, the Phoenix Hall.
Okay.
And obviously nobody really knows much of what goes on in the Freemasons, unless you're in the Freemasons.
1860.
Just watch the stairs. Yeah. She's got all these like little weird windows on the side.
Yes.
So this is the doorway.
Is this the doorway? The dreaded doorway. Oh, it's locked.
Yeah. And just a fun little one about our town hall.
Yes.
So the crest that you see above the town hall, that family crest, that's
Yes.
supposed to be Simon van der Stal's crest. But the clerk that was given the job of finding Simon van der Stal's crest asked the wrong people. They'd asked in Holland or where they originated from, then he would have found the right answer. But he actually ended up finding Adriaan van der Stal's crest, which is Simon's son, Simon van der Stal's son.
Okay.
And he founded Stellenbosch. So we've got the wrong crest.
Oh no.
This is Wickboom Lane. So this is where my coffee shop is and where André stays. And that used to be the old Muslim section of Simonstown before they were removed.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of it's been knocked down, all the old cottages. But I've got something cool to show you. So this is Alfred Lane.
Yes.
So the building at the top of this lane with it's got green trim, decorative trim around it, that is the Nur Islam Mosque. And the claim to fame here is there was a Imam Baker who translated the holy book of the Quran into Afrikaans.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was, he lived just up the road near Union Tavern.
That's interesting, eh?
So this pretty building here is called Bayview House, and unfortunately on the first floor the lights aren't on this evening, but there's this beautiful wallpaper in the hallway, on the ceiling, and in the left-hand room. It's like a red decorative wallpaper, and it's not actually wallpaper, it's 5 million stamps.
What?
So they say that the lighthouse keeper's assistant in the early 1800s papered the walls in stamps.
Crazy.
Very bored. So it's a lot of licking and sticking.
I can imagine it.
And then just to end off, even our toilets are historical.
Oh, really?
So when the Navy sailors were coming through town and they would go and get drunk at all the pubs and everything and go back to their sleeping places, they would pee all through town after drinking and then get flogged for it. So they said, well, what do you want us to do? And then the Navy decided to install a toilet halfway through town so that they'd have no excuse.
Makes sense.
Crazy. Thank you so much.
Jubilee. Yeah, I'll take you guys back to Jubilee Square. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. You guys have been a really cool group. And I don't know if you guys saw any spooks about.
I don't know, we might see on the footage, eh?
Yeah, I hope so. And send it to us, absolutely.
Yes, yes.
We've got a couple of things on the Facebook group that you can see from footage and pictures that have been taken by people that leave a lot up to the imagination, but also kind of tell us that there might be something out there. But for us, it's mostly also just about keeping people's stories alive.
That's true.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I sat out on the graveyard, but why are Dusty and Sandy in your pockets?
They hopped into my pocket to come and keep me company on the graveyard trip.
I think they were scared.
No, we had a fantastic time. I enjoyed this so much. You know?
What a fun experience.
Yeah, really, truly fun experience, and it was nice walking through the streets of Simonstown, learning the history about the different buildings, and the ghost stories were nice and cool. I enjoyed that, you know. So,
And Nikki says it's about keeping people's stories alive.
that's what it's about.
And
yeah.
I think that's what it's about for them.
And it was interesting taking a walk through the cemetery at night. You know, I enjoyed that.
We look forward to one day hearing the ghost mobile is up and running.
Yes, that'll be cool.
A very big thank you to André Leibbrandt for sponsoring this episode for us. Check out their Facebook page if you're ever in the Simonstown, Greater Cape Town area. It's a cool thing to do.
Definitely. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in the next episode.